Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around to see just where we end up.
Because today, we're heading back to a galaxy far, far away.
That's right, today we're talking about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
So Wesley, I know I just watched Attack of the Clones, and I know you just watched Attack of the Clones. So, real quick, just sum up your thoughts on Attack of the Clones, and then we'll go and dive into more detail about the movie.
First thoughts probably are, this is definitely one of the weaker of the prequel trilogy. After watching some of the other Star Wars films, it has a better, it carries a better light, it carries better now after watching some of like the prequels or sequels, sorry. More or less because it actually has a point and a story to it. We were talking about this just briefly before we started. But I feel like the lowest points was just how much they forced Anakin and Padmé's relationship. And I feel like if they did that better, Attack of the Clones would have been a way better film. Like, I feel like that's the worst part of the film. I think the rest of it went over about as well as the rest of the prequels did, but their relationship is just so forced, so random. Like, the only reason their relationship is there and their love interest is there is because it has to be for Luke and Leia to have parents later on. Like, and they could have done it in a better way, I feel like, but they didn't. And, you know, we have Attack of the Clones, one of the poorly rated Star Wars films, but it had good aspects to it too. And it had, you know, obviously plot development in it that leads, you know, into episode 3 and going forward, even into the original trilogy and everything.
Yeah, talking about all the Anakin and Padme scenes too, I really realized just how robotic some of that dialogue is too.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those scenes, like, it's so
Anakin
robotic.
does turn into a robot, so.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking more so with I noticed it more so with Padme, but yeah.
Yeah, her acting in that is very stiff.
Mm.
And it's not even just the fact that, like, a lot of people don't like Natalie Portman as an actress. Like, a lot of it, like, I've seen her act better than that. She can act, but she just wasn't she was acting very stiff in that role. And, like, you know, you even see glimpses of Hayden Christensen, you know, in some in Attack of the Clones and then some in Revenge of the Sith, more so in Revenge of the Sith, I think. But you see, like, glimpses of, hey, this is a good actor. But it's like just the dialogue and the way that he has to portray the character of Anakin that really makes him, you know, especially when the movie came out, people were hating on him so much. The love for the prequels has come back, and you know, I saw an interview a while back that Ewan McGregor was doing, talking about how people just hate the prequels, and but then, like, more recently, he's starting to see more of the love for them, and how, like, you know, when they first came out, like, everyone just seemed to hate them, but now it's like, oh, well, people love the characters. There's just aspects that maybe people didn't like of them. I mean, you and me looking back on them, like, they're our childhood, so obviously we have a lot of nostalgia for them. But I feel like there's a lot that's wrong with the way that the story or everything was written. But I think you do see glimpses. Like Ewan McGregor, I think is a great actor. He did a really good job playing Obi-Wan. I think Hayden Christensen did a good job as playing Anakin. There were just a lot of weird and awkward moments that he had to portray in Attack of the Clones specifically. And then, like you said, Padmé was very robotic. Like, I would agree with that in the fact that she seemed very stiff in a lot of, like, it seemed like they were just sitting there reading a script as opposed to, portraying the characters that they were,
And it's kind of weird to think about, like, this movie, especially, like, everyone talks about how bad the acting is, which in places I think it's more so the dialogue, but there is bad acting in it too.
Yeah.
But you also think about this, like, think about all the actors who are in these movies. Like, Ewan McGregor is a great actor. Christopher Lee, like, I mean, I don't think any of the Dooku scenes were bad, but still, like, this movie is Christopher Lee and Samuel L. Jackson and
Ian McDiarmid. Most of his scenes were pretty. He had very few scenes in this as compared to the Phantom Menace, and then even compared to Revenge of the Sith. But like, you could even tell, and this is why I think like there are certain people that are just kind of above the realm of, in that class of like, they're just a better actor than, most, where it's like a lot of the lines, like even Dooku probably had some lines that were a little off, a little cheesy maybe, but the way he portrayed them, it didn't come across that way. Same with, I think some of, I was watching one of the scenes where Palpatine and Anakin were talking, and the lines were maybe a little cheesy, but it didn't come across that way because of the way that it was portrayed in the scene, And so like, but yeah, I mean, like, they're obviously, like you said, there are obviously good actors in the movies, but that doesn't shield them completely from being in a bad movie with bad acting.
Yeah, but another thing I want to do is, earlier today I actually, stumbled across there's like 15 minutes worth of deleted scenes from Attack of the Clones that are fully complete scenes. I don't know why they didn't add a lot of those, like, keep a lot of those in the movie. I guess they wanted to trim down the runtime, but like, there were even some Anakin and Padme scenes. Like, when they were on Naboo, they went to go see, or went to Anakin and Padme went to go see Padme's family, and some of those scenes were actually like a lot better had a lot better acting than the scenes that made it into the movie. So I'm like, I don't know why some of those scenes got deleted. They also had a lot more with Obi-Wan too, like investigating the Kaminoan Dart.
Kaminoans?
Kind of.
Yeah.
And
that being said, go ahead.
And they also had a scene where when Obi-Wan was in the library, and he was looking at a bust of Dooku, and I forgot what her name is. The librarian Jedi.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I used to know her name.
I was literally just talking to Sarah about her last night because I was talking about how much of a stuck up nose she was,
Yeah. But anyway, so she came up to Obi-Wan as he was looking at this bust of Dooku, and they were talking about Dooku.
Yeah, I've seen that one before.
So you get a little bit more dialogue. You get a little bit more stuff about who Dooku was, because they do mention it in passing, but they don't. Yes. Yes. But like I said, you do get some dialogue about who Dooku was, pre-Attack of the Clones, but you don't get much. Like I said, I think that scene would have been a good to keep in to kind of build up that character a little bit more.
Much better use of time.
Because when you think about it too, they didn't, Dooku barely has any, on-screen time in the prequels.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching something today, and it was talking about how he doesn't even appear in the movie until after, an hour of runtime.
Mm-hmm. And then he dies almost immediately in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Now,
But
I do want to get back to the character of Dooku, but I do want to mention this with you talking about deleted scenes. The fact that they deleted certain scenes that you've seen, you said you watched about with Anakin and Padme that were somewhat better acted, but they left in the pear scene where he forces the pear over to his plate, he cuts it, and then forces it back to her, and like bad CGI that you see with all that. Mm-hmm. And like I was watching it, and like there were so many of their scenes that just like that one in particular, but there are a couple others where I was just like, there's no point to this. This is not further the plot any. It's really just cringy, and it doesn't even like develop their relationship. I was just like, why was this kept in? You know? But that aside, we can go all over their acting at another time. But talking about Dooku, I've recently I think I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but I mentioned it to you at one point that I'd recently listened to the Plagueis novel. I think I did. Well, I listened to the Plagueis novel. I think I told you. I don't know. I talked to too many people.
I don't think you mentioned it on the podcast, but I think you did mention that to me.
Okay. Well, in that, it goes, through the events of a lot of stuff heading up till, well, it's about Plagueis, and Plagueis dies after Palpatine becomes Chancellor. So it leads up into the middle of Phantom Menace. And so there's points in that where Palpatine and Dooku have their talks. I've gotten down talks. And I told you that I finished Tales of the Jedi today. Just sat down and watched it. And in that, they dive a lot into Dooku. And I mentioned to Sarah last night when we were watching Attack of the Clones, I said, when you look at it from Dooku's side of things, like, he went about it in a bad way, obviously, but what he did was somewhat justifiable, because what was his goal in joining the dark side, starting the Separatists? His goal was to tear down the corruption of the Republic. Like, it wasn't out of a bad place. Like, the first episode with Dooku in Tales of the Jedi, he confronts a senator and is protecting the people who kidnapped that senator's son. But it's because of the corruption that senator portrayed in the Senate, Like, he didn't care about his people, and that's why the people that he governed were in this, state. I know, like, it's a case-by-case basis, but a lot of times, like, it's seen that, honestly, under the Empire, the galaxy was in a much more, in somewhat a better place. Not everywhere, but in some places were in better states than they were under even the Republic, and definitely than they were under the New Republic after the fall of the Empire. But like, there was just a bunch of corruption in the Senate, and that was what Dooku had a problem with. He also had a problem with the corruption within the Jedi Council and within the Jedi Order, which, is what ends up being the reason that Anakin falls to the dark side, So.
Yeah, with Dooku, I think Dooku originally had good motives. I think he got corrupted over time, but yeah, I think originally he had good motives.
Now I will say, this is not something that, like, I've in the past, I've gotten into legends before. I used to know a lot of legends about the Old Republic, about the old, like, Sith Order, stuff like that. I used to know a lot about that. But, like, I didn't know a whole lot of the legends material that came in between the, like, 1 through 6 stuff. But one of the episodes of Tales of the Jedi dives into Yaddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And recently, I came across the legend story of Yaddle and how she, why she wasn't in episode 2 and she was in episode 1. and how she died. And it was something along the lines of, I think she like sacrificed herself to save Anakin on some mission or something like that. I think is how it ended up going. And in this, Dooku kills her. I'm not sure how I feel about that. You know, not just because I don't think Dooku was at a point at that time to kill another Jedi. I also feel like it makes the way that he left the Order much more different than, like, it seems it should be explained in continuity, you know?
Mm.
Like, you know, they're gonna find out that Yaddle's dead, and they're gonna come, like, they just kind of left the story there, but, like, there would be investigations into what happened with Yaddle, and there would be, they'd somehow come along to the conclusion that, oh, Dooku ended up killing her. But then that makes the start of episode 2, where the Jedi are even defending Dooku, saying, oh no, Dooku was once a Jedi like us. Like, he would never attempt to kill a senator, you know, when Padme accuses Dooku of being behind the plot. And it's like, but if because he left the Order, he went and said, hey, I'm leaving the Order. You know, he told them and he left. And then he got entangled in a bunch of the separatist stuff. Like, he didn't turn to the dark side from the Order. I feel like it makes it a little bit more, like, in my mind, it doesn't fit. You know? I don't know what your opinion on it is, but I feel like it just seems kind of out of the blue for him, especially in that state, in the way that they'd been showing him, for him to end up killing Yaddle at that point in time.
Yeah. Another thing that was kind of off topic with talking about Dooku, but another thing that I was kind of realized didn't make sense is that, so I know ultimately the plot to kill Padme you can trace it back to Palpatine.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't make much sense to me that Newt Gunray was at all adamant about killing Padme, because it made it seem like they wanted to kill Padme because of her, like, the way she was voting in the Senate, but she was the one who was against the creation of an army for the Republic. And you'd think you think the separatists who were trying to build an army to take over the Republic, or to, get their demands met or whatever, you'd think they wouldn't want, the Republic to have an army. So that right there didn't really make much sense to me. But
I hadn't really thought about that. That does make sense. Like, why would they're on opposite sides here? Why would they be opposed to someone voting against an army? Yeah, that's true, huh?
I mean, I guess it can go back to Newt Gunray, like, in the whole stuff with in episode 1, when maybe he still holds a grudge for them, ruining his plans for Naboo. But
yeah. But it did seem very much like it was more a political thing than it was like a grudge, like in the way it was portrayed. So that brings it back to your point, which then again still doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's an explanation or anything about that, but like I said, it makes sense that Palpatine wanted Padme dead so the Republic could get an army, because he wanted a war. But
yeah, well, actually, and this goes back to Palpatine's grand scheme. Do you really think that it was that he wanted her dead? Like, how would it have gone if Padme had ended up dying? Because at that point, then Palpatine wouldn't have Padme as, like, bait or manipulation to manipulate Anakin to the dark side. Like, yes, his mother's death was the instigator that really started his decline to the dark side, but Padme was, like, the reason he ended up turning in the end.
That is a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Because like the way that the story goes, and they go to Naboo because of the threats on Padme's life. So do you think it was maybe more of a thing where he wanted to initiate those hits on her so that she would end up retreating to Naboo, causing Jar Jar Binks, probably a less sophisticated mind, easier to manipulate, into giving him emergency powers? Then he has emergency powers. He can, call in for the clone army. Then all of a sudden the clone army's there, and then they're, the defeat of the Jedi is, whenever he feels like it. Like, as soon as he feels it's necessary, he can get all the Jedi killed off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
obviously there's a lot more detail, I think, there than you or I, either one, can kind of break down or see through, but I don't know, it's just thought.
Also, another thing I want to point out is, we were talking about acting earlier. One scene that I think Ewan McGregor does an amazing job acting is the when he's talking to the Prime Minister of Kamino.
Uh-huh.
I had this pointed out. Is like that whole scene. Obi-Wan looks confused as heck because he,
Oh yeah. I was even thinking like the like not even just on the acting side of it, but the acting that Obi-Wan had to do in that scenario, because Obi-Wan was confused, but he tried to keep it all together so that he could get more information.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that just shows like I don't know, the more and more stuff that's come out in recent years with things related to the Jedi and the Jedi Order really makes it show like just how much of a quote unquote police force that they are. Like, they do investigations and stuff like that, and like it kind of shows even more. So you look at that scene with that in mind, and it's like, oh yeah, they're he's running an investigation here. He's trying to, he's a little bit confused, but he has to weed through it. And like everything he said falls in line. Like, sometimes it doesn't make quite sense, but like as a viewer, he's taken aback by the fact the clone army was made. But like, if you're in the universe right there, as like, the what do they call them?
The Kaminoans?
Well, what's the head one called?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. The Prime Minister there, like, responding to his questions, like, it doesn't seem off, like, even though he seems to be taken aback by, like, Sifo-Dyas. It's just, oh, hey, Sifo-Dyas is dead, but that being the case, let me still take a look at this army. Like, it still makes sense within the conversation.
Hmm. Yeah. It's also kind of a now another character I want to talk about too is Jango Fett.
Mm-hmm.
It's always kind of confused, or kind of been interesting to me, like how Boba Fett in like the fandom is so loved, but no one really cares about Jango Fett.
Yeah, I mean,
I think part of that has to do with the fact that in the original trilogy, well, part of it is Boba Fett's from the original trilogy, but it's also the fact that in the original trilogy, you don't really know anything about Boba Fett.
Yeah,
like
a lot of mystery.
He's got like 3 or 4 lines of dialogue. He's just this mysterious character who's just there. But Jango Fett is got a lot more like story around him in the movie.
They honestly, besides the fact that Jango has a lot more story around him, they probably honestly have around the same amount of screen time.
Yeah,
Jango more, but I mean, he doesn't have that much more.
And Django definitely has a lot more dialogue.
Yeah, a bit more dialogue there.
Even though Boba's technically in 4 movies, if you count, little Boba and Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
But
4 movies.
Oh wait.
So it'd be Attack of the Clones, and then
it's
5
just
and
3.
6, right?
It is just 3, yeah. I don't know why I was adding the 4th one in there.
Got me confused. I was like, am I missing something? I mean, I guess you could add in like isn't he in like the Christmas special or something like that? I've never seen it before. I don't think
we
it's something
don't
that's
talk
easily
about Christmas
accessed.
special.
I don't think it's something that's easily accessed anymore, but yeah. Anyways, we'll move on real quick from that. But yeah, I don't really know necessarily, because I mean, to be honest, Jango Fett is probably one of the better parts of the movie. You know, like he probably is one of the better parts, cooler parts of Attack of the Clones, but he is not, the fandom doesn't. I don't know how much of it is the fandom doesn't like him, other than the fandom just doesn't really take much notice to him. You know?
See, I don't think Jango Fett's disliked. It's just like I said, he's just not as recognized.
Well, I mean, given the option, like people would take Boba Fett over Jango Fett. I mean, that's just how it is. Now, it's and this has been pointed out before, but I do think it's a cool thing is that Jango Fett and Boba Fett, within the lines of the 6 movies, because obviously we know Boba Fett didn't die at the end of Return of the Jedi, but within that premise there, they both died, quote unquote, in the same way. Because Boba Fett died because of his jetpack malfunctioned, and so did Jango Fett because he was trying to jetpack away from Mace Windu, and then he got beheaded. And it's like, when you slow it down and you look at the frames and you see it, like there are sparks and stuff from when he got trampled that kind of fried his jetpack, and he can't fly off, because when you fight a Jedi, you don't want to be, on level ground with them. Like that's not gonna be best for you. But it is kind of nice kind of cool to have the parallelism there. And I don't know. I guess George Lucas at that point probably had just assumed kill off Boba Fett, but they've since brought him back in the book of Boba Fett, which sadly was a disappointment.
Yeah. We've talked about that before, but
yes,
yeah.
I mean, we're on the Fets right now, so I figured it'd be a good time to at least mention it. We don't have to dive into it. We are trying to stick on the main topic of Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
With that in mind, though, just to turn right back around and come back to Attack of the Clones. What about the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin in this?
I forgot how annoying Anakin is.
Yes.
Yes, Master. Sorry, Master. Yes, Master. Like,
I don't know necessarily how it went differently in Revenge of the Sith, but the dynamic is so much better in that than it is in this. And I don't know what they figured out.
I think
they needed to do it in this.
I think it's partially because Anakin is less whiny and less annoying.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, their dynamic.
They leaned way too much into the whiny side of things when it came to Anakin in Episode 2, whereas in Episode 3 he leans a lot more onto the aspect of being very arrogant.
Mm.
Like he's a very arrogant Jedi Knight in Revenge of the Sith, but he has a basis for that arrogance. Like he's just, he's a Jedi Knight and he's a war hero from the years of the Clone Wars, like he's proven himself and he has a basis for all the pride that he has. Now, should he have it? Maybe not. That doesn't, within the Jedi within the Jedi guidelines, no, he shouldn't. But still, like, they made him way too whiny in episode 2. And that's part of the reason that I think the dynamic between him and Padme is so off.
Yeah, I don't think Hayden Christensen can do whiny that well.
No. Well, also, I don't think that whiny was the best decision for Anakin. When you think about it, like, okay, I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I thought it was kind of a cool thing that, you know, hey, you bring in Annie as a little boy, and this guy's supposed to turn into Vader. Like, I thought it was a cool poster picture or whatever, where it had little Annie walking out, and Darth Vader as the shadow on the you know, wall back there. Like, I thought that was a cool thing. But you don't need to have whiny. Like, angry, upset, yes. But whiny, maybe not. Like, that's...
Well, and that's also to the scenes where Anakin does get kind of, like, riled up and stuff in this movie. It's bad because he's also whiny at the same time. Like, when he's talking about, you know, having killed all the Tuscans.
Mm-hmm.
That scene probably could have worked if Anakin was less whiny.
Yeah. And more hate, you know, more with rage and less with, you know, the whininess of it all.
Or actually, I think that scene could have, like, that dialogue could have worked. Even that same dialogue could have worked if Anakin was just, like, almost, like, straight-faced monotone. Like, have almost no emotion when saying it. I think that could have worked better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that can show the you know, more, the darker nature of, you know, that Anakin's starting to show, you know.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Also, like, a lot of people talk about how, now, it was a tall task for anyone, any Jedi, to, take over and be the master of Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, but even just Anakin Skywalker in general. But you know, and Obi-Wan may not have been the most qualified, when taking on Anakin as his apprentice. But he did the best that he could, and a lot of people throw a lot of slack on Obi-Wan for basically the way he trained Anakin, and, you know, not mentoring him in the way that he maybe should have. But if you look at Attack of the Clones, which is, you know, one of the biggest, like, things that we have that shows, you know, the dynamic between Master Kenobi and Padawan Skywalker. One, we don't have that much, like, time with them both, you know. But the time that we do see, like, there are a couple times where Kenobi snaps at Anakin, but most of it is in, like, because of how Anakin's been acting. So it's like, you know, like, the people talk about how if Obi-Wan had just listened to Anakin and, you know, let him go after his mother, he would have, you know, been able to save her. And it's like, well, maybe, but, like, he wasn't necessarily putting down that, you know, he was having nightmares about his mother. It was more like, hey, you know, you got to be mindful of your thoughts. You know, he, like, the lines like, what, be mindful of your thoughts, they betray you. You know, it's like, I think at that point, Obi-Wan knew that because of the connection to the Force that Anakin had, he knew that, you know, Force visions were something that Anakin would deal with a lot. And he was like, you know, Force visions are not what the future is going to be. It's what the future could be. So, like, you know, just be mindful of what you're seeing. Don't take it all as fact. And he may not have portrayed it in the best way, but, like, you know, we talked about this when we were talking about episode 1. Yeah, Obi-Wan was not the first option or the best option for training Anakin, but he didn't do as bad of a job as a lot of people give him credit for.
Yeah. One thing that I kind of picked up too in the movie, like, it almost feels like Anakin acting out is a more recent thing. Like, I think Anakin's always been kind of, like, you know, questioning and stuff or whatever. But it seems like Anakin more acting out has been more recent. Just kind of the impression you get in the movie. But yeah, I still think Obi-Wan and Anakin, their dynamic is really interesting. Like I think I think we both agreed on that last video or last podcast we did on that. That yeah, Anakin or Obi-Wan is not really the Obi-Wan was a good Jedi Master, but not for Anakin.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, as far as Jedi go, like, it is a widely believed, and I think most anyone in the fandom would probably agree that Obi-Wan was, at this point in time, one of the most powerful Jedi. You know, under, of course, the likes of Yoda, Mace Windu, and even Anakin to a certain degree. But he was like one of the top 3. He was within the top 5 of most powerful Jedi at this point in time. Like, but not within Attack of the Clones time, probably more within the Revenge of the Sith time. But like, he was powerful, he was knowledgeable, but with how little experience he had within taking on Anakin, you know.
Yeah, you don't get on the Jedi Council without being a top tier.
Yeah. Now, talking about the amount of how powerful a Jedi that Kenobi was, let's talk about the in duel between Dooku and Anakin and Obi-Wan. This was extremely quick, but let's talk about it real quick.
Yes, I did want to touch on this too. So, one thing I do want to point out too is not a lot of people realize is Obi-Wan's considered like a really good really skilled Jedi, but he never on screen beat Dooku in a duel.
Yeah.
And
I do have some thoughts with that, but and I don't want to take anything away from Dooku's sword skill. But I've heard that obviously Dooku was like one of the best swords duelists of that era, maybe ever. Which is really, really shown within Episode 2, like how quickly he dismantles Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like, I forgot how short that fight was.
Even Anakin dual-wielding lightsabers, which to most combatants would completely overwhelm them, but Dooku easily.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Anakin wasn't as skilled with dual wielding, but yeah, like you say, it still usually would overpower someone, but Dooku's just that skilled.
But Dooku easily disarmed Anakin.
Yeah, he only had the second lightsaber for like maybe 30 seconds at most.
Yeah,
then 30 seconds after that, he got disarmed. Literally,
yeah. Yeah. Also, what is it with Star Wars? Also, what is it with Star Wars and dismembering its main characters?
I don't know.
But I think part of that is the again, like you're talking about with the symbolism between Jango Fett's jetpack getting or not functioning before he dies. I think part of that is like the duel at the end of the second movie. Anakin loses his arm, and Luke in Empire, his second movie, the duel at the end of his second movie, he loses his hand. I think that's part of the symbolism there. But yeah, the duel there, like it takes Yoda to actually finally
run him off.
Run him off, yeah.
And even with that, I think Yoda probably could have handled Dooku. The reason that Yoda would have quote unquote lost in that fight is because of his compassion on the other two Jedi. He saved them, which gave Dooku time to run away. I do want to mention this, and I'm not saying, and this is something we can dive into with Episode 3, but I've heard it as a theory that when Dooku and Obi-Wan fight in Episode 3, that so like Jedi, they have like that force field around them where essentially it makes it, unless they're like tiers above each other, like it makes it really hard for another one to use force powers on like one. So like two Jedi who are about the same level of power can't go around force choking each other because like they have somewhat of a force barrier there. Like they can, but it's not that easily done. And I think at this point in time, within the Revenge of the Sith, I think Dooku and Kenobi were around the same level of force ability. I think Obi-Wan had gotten to that. Obviously, at this point in time, he was on the council, so I think he was pretty powerful at that point. And at this point in time, being, I don't know at what point this was said, but Mace Windu said that Obi-Wan was a master of Sorsu, and so I would assume at this point in time he would be considered that. That all being said, I've seen a theory where people think that maybe Palpatine helped, breaking down that force barrier so that Dooku could basically get rid of Obi-Wan in the fight. I don't know if that's true or not. A lot of people think, the time where he's they shoot back to Palpatine and he's like, like gritting his teeth and like, acting like he's getting in the fight, like that, might be the time where he's like kind of manipulating it with the Force. Obviously, I don't know if that's true, and that doesn't change the fact that Obi-Wan never beat Dooku in a fight. I just think that's an interesting thing to mention, and I definitely think that Obi-Wan in Attack of the Clones was severely overmatched at that point. I mean, Dooku had been a Jedi Master in the Order for years, and then has turned to the dark side and started unlocking new powers. So he was well out of Kenobi's class. But
yeah, we'll go through and break down the our thoughts on the Revenge of the Sith fight scenes when the time comes.
Yeah.
But for now, yeah, I think. Oh, okay. Of the fight scenes in the prequel or the duels in the prequels, this one is kind of underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it was so quick. Even the Yoda and Dooku was really quick.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a good duel because the choreography is great, and like I said, you get to actually see Dooku actually, you get to see how skilled he is with the lightsaber, because he disarms and defeats a Jedi Knight who been a Jedi Knight for 10 years, and he also, and at this time, Anakin was at the same position that Obi-Wan was in the Phantom Menace. He's technically a Padawan, but he's pretty much ready to take the trials, because we also see it that he does take the trials and becomes a Jedi Knight between the end of Attack of the Clones and the beginning of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
So and that's that time gap can't be any more than a year. It's probably less than 6 months.
Yeah.
So he was ready to take the trials then. So he for all intents and purposes he was also at the same level as a Jedi Knight would be. So Dooku effectively fights two Jedi Knights to a standstill, and he also holds his own against the Grand Master of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, that, I mean, like you're saying, it is a little bit of a letdown as far as duels go in Star Wars, and especially in the prequels. But yeah, it just shows, and I think it was good that it showed the power that Dooku had. Like, yeah, he is known to be one of the best swords duelists in the galaxy at that point in time, and he easily dismantles them. Like, there was during the fight that Obi-Wan and Jango were having on Camino.
Yeah.
Forgot the name of it.
You can't remember
I
that
was
word,
thinking,
can you?
I don't know, it's just tough. But during that fight, I was watching it, and my the thought that came into my mind was both of these guys. Like Django was a Mandalorian, and he had been raised from birth to basically fight. So he's been trained from birth. Obi-Wan is a Jedi. He has been trained from birth. I was like, these are two very skilled fighters going hand to hand at each other. And you see that, coming into the fight with Dooku, it's like these are skilled fighters here. And they lose within seconds. Like Obi-Wan told Anakin, he's like, I can't do this without you. We have to do this together. And even if they had done it together, I doubt that it would have really been much of a fight. Like, I think Dooku would have still easily took them apart. Just because of how much better he was than them at that point in time. And even aside from that, even if he was overwhelmed with the amount of power that they brought to him, I think because of the fact that he was that much older and wiser than them, I think he would have been able to outwit them with, like, battle strategy and, like, separated them to be able to defeat them. But, like, I think that the shortness of the fight just is a show to the amount of power he has. And the fact that, he even makes a statement when him and Yoda start battling. They're like, he says, it seems that our power, our knowledge of the Force, we're not going to be able to have an outcome here with our knowledge of the Force. So they pull out their lightsabers. Yoda's the Grand Master, and Dooku is rivaling him with his power in the Force. Like, it says something,
And it's also kind of interesting, too, like, a lot of people pointed out, like, Dooku never had the yellow Sith eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of people point to that, saying, like, he wasn't really that, or he didn't really use the dark side that much because of that. Because people who use the dark side a lot had the yellow eyes. So, even if you think of it that way too, like, so he was just using the Force to the same capacity that a Jedi would. And I mean, obviously he did use Force lightning, which is traditionally considered a Sith power. But still,
if you look at the character of Dooku, like, he is traditionally less ruthless of a character compared to a lot of the other Sith,
Yeah.
Like it's mentioned in this one where Padmé accuses him of being one over the assassination attempts. It mentioned it's like, he's a political idealist, not a murderer. It's like he's very much seen more in the eyes of, like, a political figure than he is as a warrior.
That's the thing. Dooku was a politician at this point, and that's one thing I kind of dislike with his portrayal in the Clone Wars, because in the Clone Wars he was kind of portrayed as, like, this, like, scheming, like, mastermind or whatever. But no, Dooku was supposed to be a politician.
Well, he was a count for a reason.
Yeah.
Count of Sereno, I believe is what it's called.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, he was a politician first, and yeah. Also, one thing I want to point out too is I kind of wonder. So when he was talking to Obi-Wan, when he had him up, when he had him in the, like, cell or whatever, Incredible style,
Mm-hmm.
But no, when he was he was talking to him, he was talking about like, but basically the same thing that Vader had said to Luke, like, basically, like, join me and we can defeat the Dark Lord over the Republic or whatever. Like, it's kind of interesting. Like, even then, like, I know that's kind of the natural order of the way Sith work. Is the apprentice is constantly trying to overthrow the master and become the master himself. But like, even then, like, Dooku was. I still feel like Dooku was still trying to actually do good by the galaxy. Like he was actually still trying
Yeah.
to bring order to the Republic and actually make it. You know.
Well,
But
within the movies, that's the way it's portrayed. Is that he really wants to bring order to the galaxy and like actual order. Like he wants to bring down the Republic, but it's because of the corruption. Whereas, like what you were saying with the Clone Wars, like he is portrayed as the more military genius, like scheming up, and like you see a bunch of the worlds that he's conquered and like the Separatists are very much portrayed as the bad guys, and for good reason. Like they'd come in and they'd destroy places, and like I don't think that would have ever been what Dooku would have actually wanted, but it was the way that he was portrayed in the Clone Wars, you know?
But you also have to realize too, like the in the prequels, every time people mention like corruption in the Senate, they have a point because that Senate is the same Senate that became the Imperial Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't forget that they didn't dismember or dismantle the government of the Republic. The Republic became the Empire.
Yeah. Well, the only difference was that the Emperor had supreme control.
I mean, yes, but still, you get what I'm saying, though. So the every accusation of the Republic being corrupt was true.
Oh yeah, I mean it was.
And, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Dooku and the Separatists were right because obviously murdering and killing a bunch of people is not right, but they still had a point.
Yeah, I mean it's like when you get radical with your ideas and you think that going around and like killing people is like the best way to get your point across. It's like, well, no, that's not how you do that. Like they're you don't cross the line of being civil just to get your point across. Like
Well, and
that's very much what they did.
Actually, when you think about it, like I know we're getting a little bit into episode 3 here, but with Padme and Bail Organa, they both kind of had that same idea of, the Senate is incredibly corrupt,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to try to do this. We're going to try to fix it the legal way.
Yeah.
By actually serving in the Senate. But whereas like you just said, like the Separatists still had that same idea, but they took it to a radical extreme of, let's go try to go to war and try to fix it that way.
But see, the problem is when you do it like that, and this is not just in a Star Wars scenario, like this is like real world stuff, kind of. But when you do it in that way, where you try and push your ideas on someone with force, well, the end result can never be good. Like if you do it and you have civil discussions, like you would in the way that Padme and Senator Organa would be doing it within the Senate, like you can come to conclusions that best suit everyone. Whereas if you do it by force, someone like you're gonna leave someone unhappy. Like it's gonna hurt someone in the process. Like war is never a good thing. And even if you're pushing ideas that are good for the, in this case, like good for the galaxy, yeah, maybe it's good for the galaxy, but how many war-torn worlds are you causing to suffer because you think your idea is that much better than what's already in place? It might be, but you're causing a lot of problems in the process.
Yeah. Also, one thing that I want to point out too that I realize that like I understand why the original trilogy wasn't this way, but it makes no sense why the sequel trilogy was this way too. But like the prequels are the only movies that actually make the galaxy seem lived in. Because like you look at like I guess it's because it's most like it's the only one that takes place in the core worlds. But like you look at like the original trilogy takes place mostly in the Outer Rim, which conceptually makes sense because the rebellion would start in the Outer Rim. It wouldn't start in the capital. You know.
Yeah.
Um. So it makes sense. Like that. And also, you also have to realize the time. They didn't have special effects or whatever. So if they wanted to have people to make it seem like it was like the galaxy was like more lived in, it would have to be like
Actual people.
all extras. They had no CGI or anything. But it makes no sense in the sequels that like the galaxy is very like empty. Like almost every planet they go to is empty. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, and I said, even with that, with the original trilogy, they had like times when they went to like actual civilization, like they went to Bespin, which seems lived in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Pretty. Yeah.
even on Endor, they the Ewoks, there's tons of Ewoks everywhere. But like I said, it just seemed kind of weird. Seems kind of weird to me the way that works.
I've seen the prequels or the sequels so little that I can't speak on that, but that is true. Like yeah.
Yeah. Um. Trying to think, have we not talked about anything in Attack of the Clones?
I'm sure there's plenty we haven't talked about, but I don't really know much.
I mean, obviously the clones.
That's true. I was thinking about that, and I didn't know how much we wanted to dive into the actual clones, but they are the main focal point of the movie.
So that's one thing like that I'm glad they did more with in the Clone Wars was actually give the clones like more identity, because in this this movie they didn't even have names. None of them had names.
Yeah,
They were just
I
this,
say you don't. They didn't even mention any of them. I mean,
like they were just this fighting force, and so like I think they only addressed them by the rank, and that was only like twice.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
it
it kind of makes sense, but
then again, they did just meet the clones, but still,
yeah, yeah.
but
I will say it is kind of cool. Like as time has gone on, like obviously when you watch these movies for the first time, and like when they first came out, the Clone Wars and all those things weren't out yet. And so it is kind of cool, like, oh, this is your first introduction. We don't know what all is going on with this. We don't know all the details of everything. But it is kind of cool to see, like, I mean, in all honesty, this movie was written off of line from episode 4 when Obi-Wan says, I fought with your father in the Clone Wars. Like,
yep.
Like, it's kind of cool, that this is what we got of that. But it's like, we did, like, I obviously didn't have to live through it, which is kind of nice because now I have all this stuff at my fingertips, lore and stuff like that. But it's like, there's so little known about these clone troopers, this fighting force. And, they kind of come out of nowhere and, are here, and everyone's like, well, what's going on? What's their deal? And then, now we got the Clone Wars show, which fleshes them out a lot more, and Bad Batch has dropped back into a little bit more of some of the stuff, with the clones and kind of talking about them. And there's
Also,
other source material that's come out since then with some of the stuff with the clones, and it's pretty cool.
Also, one thing I realized when watching this is from just realized it from like after watching Bad Batch and Rebels is So the two main planets in this, like, or that they go to in this, or two of the main planets they go to in this movie are Kamino and Geonosis.
Mhm.
The Empire killed off almost all the Kaminoans and all the Geonosans.
Yep.
It's like, you're like, that's you
A
do
lot of
get
people.
a much better glimpse of just how evil the Empire is in the shows.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like even Rebels being made for kids, like you get that, like the Empire, committed mass genocide against the Geonosans. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. That is in Rebels, right? Because I saw
Yes.
something the other day where it's talking about what that last Geonosian like click clack or whatever, and I remember seeing it, but I couldn't remember what it was from. That's from Rebels, though. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um yeah,
I've seen
it's
it through, but it's been a while since I watched Rebels, so.
yeah. Also, I just kind of like how they did it. So like, even then, we get the like plans for the Death Star, and
Yes, I thought that was cool.
mm,
I mean, what is it? At the end of Revenge of the Sith, they show a partially built Death Star,
yeah,
I think, or something like that.
they
Which
started
means,
construction on the Death Star. But also, think about
yeah,
this too. Think about this too. That station took 20 years to build.
yeah. Well, it would have been probably a little bit more because they were starting to build it, but they had some of the pieces put together at that point, so probably 25 or more.
Yeah, maybe.
And then you got to think about how quote unquote quickly they did it to Return of the Jedi.
Oh
Now,
no, the Death. When you think about it, the Death Star 2 would have had to have been like insanely fast building it, because, like I said, it took them, you know, around 20 years to build the first Death Star,
mhm,
and then Death Star 2 was much bigger, and it wasn't, it wasn't finished at that point, but like I said, it was much bigger, and the laser and stuff, like pretty much state of the art technology with the super laser.
yeah,
Yeah.
they got it up a lot quicker, but
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a nice little Easter egg that they had, um, with showing uh the Death Star plans, and like even showing that, like, you know all these pieces have been in place and in play for a lot longer than you would think. You know, like,
Mm.
obviously, like the Sith for generations had been planning and plotting their revenge against the Jedi, but like that, even aside from it, the amount of planning that specifically Sidious had in planning the defeat of the Jedi, and then just after it having his own, his own domination of of the universe, like,
Mm.
was so detailed and so meticulous that, like, it was he had been planning it for a minute.
Oh yeah, Sidious's takeover of, like, I think we mentioned that when we talked about the Phantom Menace. It's just, like, rewatching it, I realized how scheming and like
Hmm.
how like manipulative he was even from the beginning.
Yeah. Now I know a lot of the stuff from like the Plagueis novel or is no longer canon. I don't know how much of it is still and is still not. It probably depends on what they go back to and what they don't. Um, Plagueis seemingly had some stuff to do with the bit of it. Not to take anything away from Sidious. Sidious obviously was very, very, like, a very smart man. Um, but there are like certain things when I was listening to it that I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that they give that to someone, that credit to someone else behind the scenes of even behind Sidious. But that being beside the point, I had some that was kind of funny from it. There was a point in it where Plagueis tells Sidious about his first, like the first time he went and like killed somebody or something. Like his master sent him out to kill someone, and he force choked the guy that he was killing. And he, in that moment when he's telling Sidious that, he starts force choking Palpatine, and just slightly. And at that point, after that it's done, Palpatine says to himself, he's like, after that time, I'm no longer gonna let my guard down. Like I'm never gonna trust anyone. And he doesn't for the most part. And then he lets his guard down just slightly when it comes to him dying from his apprentice, because he's so focused on Luke, he lets his guard down enough so that Vader can throw him over the guardrails. That's what I was looking for.
So one thing that I don't, I haven't read it, but I know the story, basic like story of the Plagueis novel. One thing I don't like about it is the fact that it does have Plagueis living up until Palpatine becomes Supreme Chancellor, because the way it explains that is that Darth Maul was just like a Sith assassin or whatever, wasn't an actual Sith, wasn't an actual Sith Lord, which I don't like. He had the title Darth, he was a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me being nitpicky, but
I mean, I feel like with the amount of play that Plagueis had, like, it makes sense for the story, but I will say that like what you're saying with the fact that Darth Maul was in fact Darth Maul, he should have, I mean, everyone knows that the Rule of Two was, for as much as it was followed, it really wasn't. Like, there were a bunch of other apprentices. Like, everyone had a apprentice of some kind. Like, masters had more than one usually, and apprentices would find their own, and like stuff like that.
Well, like you look at Dooku and Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
But like I said, basically it was comparing, basically the way the Plagueis novel kind of explains it is that, Maul was pretty much the same thing. It was pretty much an assassin like Ventress was. But like I said, again, Maul had the title Darth, whereas Ventress didn't. So
yeah,
that's,
it is a little off, and I think that's probably one reason why it's they besides the fact that it's Legends, they don't have it as canon anymore. But I mean, like, Plagueis was pretty instrumental in bringing Palpatine to his power. I mean, you could even make the case that, I think with the way the Plagueis novel goes about saying it, I think Palpatine ended up killing Plagueis around the same time that Maul was killed.
Yeah.
Because I was going to give him the benefit of the doubt, saying, well, maybe it was like, he died midway through the movie, and then, then Palpatine gave Maul the title of Darth, and then he died at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi. But I guess that wouldn't make sense with the way they did it.
Yeah. But another thing, this is off topic again too, from both Plagueis and the and Attack of the Clones. But so Dave Filoni is making a movie, Star Wars movie, and the apparently they just he released the name of the movie, and it got like so I know you probably haven't read them, but do you know the the Thrawn trilogy of books.
Yeah.
So the first one is called Heir to the Empire, and
Mhm.
that's the name that the Filoni movie is going to be called.
Well, I saw that they were bringing out the cast for Thrawn and then Ezra Bridger.
Yeah, but no, when he announced like Heir to the Empire, I'm like, oh.
Well, they need to
like,
go into a Thrawn trilogy because that would be one really big thing to revive, at least movie wise, the Star Wars fans. I mean, Thrawn has always been a cool character within Star Wars, and you know they brought him in with the Rebel show, but you know he's still out there and can be brought back.
Mm-hmm. But that's one thing I like about the character of Thrawn from the books, at least, is I need to get those books and read them. But that's one thing I like about the character because like through most of Star Wars, we see like the villain is like able to fight the heroes through their power, but Thrawn is, Thrawn is really just like physically he's just a normal dude, but he is able to like. He's able to be a threat to Luke and the other Jedi in the story because he is just so like he's a tactical genius. That's why he's such a threat is because of his intellect, his mind. He's not he's not a physical threat, but he's a I'm just blanking on the word. It's contagious, Wesley.
You just said tactical genius, and I'm just gonna stick with that.
Yeah, okay, that works. Yeah.
You probably had another word in mind, but
yeah, but he's a threat because of his intellect, not because of his physical.
Is my mind numbingness going towards you now?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Not my fault.
Well, it kind of is.
Yeah, but I mean, you should be less susceptible to it.
Well,
for no reason, you just should be.
Well, you should just be better.
Well, I can only be so much.
True. Can't hold you to unrealistic standards.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we've pretty much we've gotten way off topic about Attack of the Clones, so
I think we covered about what we can with that.
I reckon we're pretty much done. It's also been an hour and 15 minutes, so
yeah.
So yeah, let's move on to what's new with you.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah.
So Wesley, what is new with you?
The problem is not as much if I have or haven't done anything recently to tell you something that's new with me. The problem actually is me remembering what I've done.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I have been playing a lot of. I have been playing a lot of Fallout. I say a lot more than I have been. Let's see. I think the last I played, I just finished in Diamond City, and I was headed out to get the detective.
Okay.
So I'm deep within the mine. I've already gotten into the Fallout base or whatever they call them, the shelter. I've already gotten into that, and I think I'm on the last little bit of having to get through the guards that they have out there. But I am very low on ammunition, and I'm very low on health, and I love getting myself into these situations.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot to that game.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I found is that it's not always about, like, I get frustrated when I die a lot, But sometimes I'll do things, and like as I die, let's say I get a little bit farther at a point, and I see, oh, hey, there's a better way I could have done that. I like start to develop my strategy. Like I was, when you're helping out the Minutemen, your first mission is to go help these people. And when you get there, they say that they're having trouble with some raiders, and that their hideout base is, this factory over there. And I went in there at one point, and I died, first 3 or 4 times going in, because I just get overwhelmed with raiders coming at me. And then eventually I realized that, if I came in through this certain way and I picked off, the snipers they had up on the roof or something like that, and then kind of came in this, I figured out a route how I could get into the base without, taking the least amount of damage and wasting the least amount of ammunition. And it's like, but it took some time to figure out that strategy. A lot of deaths to get there. I'm by no means the best when it comes to video games, but I just don't play them enough, I don't think. But I get it done. Eventually.
But yeah, I remember when I did that stuff. The Minutemen quests get kind of annoying after a while, but
I left that. I never reported back, and I just went headed straight on to Diamond City, because I really right now, like, I wanna just finish the main quest of the game, like the main point of the game. And once I get that finished, I might come back and play some of the side stuff. But like for now, I'm getting through the main storyline because I have like 50 other games lined up that I'm trying to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, it's not as Fallout 4. I don't think is as long as some of the other Fallout games. The main story isn't, but
yeah,
it's.
You said it was like what, like 20 hours, something like that, maybe 13.
No,
I think it was in the teens.
No, Fallout 4 is a little bit longer. Is longer than that.
You gave a runtime, and you said it wasn't that long. I'm only like maybe 4 or 5 hours in, time wise, I think. But you gave a time that wasn't that long.
$27 hours.
27? Okay.
Yeah.
27 is not long. Yeah, I'm like in the first maybe 5 hours of it or something like that. So maybe I can get it finished by September.
Yeah. I think the thing that you're thinking of that I mentioned.
Oh, go ahead.
The thing you're thinking of that I mentioned was 13 was Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds.
Maybe.
That's also a pretty good game, but like you said, you already have a long list of games to get through.
Long list of games to play through. Which, even if I do finish this by September, I don't really see how that helps me with the newest Bethesda game coming out in September, because it's not like I'm going to play it right then. I still see that flaw in your argument.
Well, no, I was just saying that because so we could try to ride that algorithm. With new Bethesda game coming out, so we can talk about something Bethesda. That's why we talked about
True.
So more relevant stuff. So that's why I was just saying that, so we can talk about something relevant.
That's fair. That's fair. And I guess if it's just come out, I can watch some of the first stuff of it and maybe know a little bit about the game before everyone dives into it too much.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a while.
Now, that one comes out. Yeah, that one comes out on the series, right? The
yeah, it's a series.
Whatever the new one is. Yeah. So wouldn't be able to get it anyways. Now, you upgraded to the series, right? Because you got more than Xbox One. You still have the well, you don't have the Xbox One. You have one of the later versions, right?
I have One S. Yeah.
One S. Okay. But you're still, I guess, a generation behind what's needed for these newer games.
Yeah, the naming conventions for Xbox is so retarded.
Yes. I think we've talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah. So they go from the
it's a little dumb.
Xbox to the Xbox 360, which fair enough, and then the Xbox One. But then the Xbox One has, the 3 different versions. They have the VCR version like you have. Then they had the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X, which one is HD, one's 4K. And then the new, the next generation, they decided to go with the Xbox Series S and Series X. Like, that's not going to get confusing.
Yeah. Xbox is gonna be doing what they do.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Also, since we talked about it last time, I think it was 2 weeks ago. We were talking about handhelds.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see PlayStation release the or announce their new handheld?
I did not.
I don't
keep
even
up with
know.
much of that.
I don't even know what it's going to be called, but it's literally going to be just for streaming. Like
Just for
streaming your PS5 to the device. It's not its own console. You have to have a PS5 to play it.
See, we were talking about this, and we even warned them. Come on, y'all.
It's stupid. It's stupid.
So wait, the looks of this, and I don't know how much of this is just Photoshop or how much of this is actual what their design would be, but it looks like just like a PlayStation controller with like a big, like a small tablet in it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much exactly what they're doing. Yeah,
it's dumb.
Yeah, it's so dumb. See,
I get streaming's a big thing now, but that's the dumbest thing. Like, you'd make a whole lot more money off of it.
If you have a PS5 already, you can literally download the PlayStation app on your phone, use your PlayStation 5 controller on your phone, and play on your phone. It does the same thing. It's like, look, I would be fine even if it was just for cloud gaming. Like, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. As long as you could do it separate from having to have the actual console.
But yeah. If it was cloud gaming where you could you pull up all the games you own on a PlayStation and play them remotely without having to download them. As long as you have
the thing
internet.
is, people should take notes when Nintendo released the Wii U and realized that it did not work. Like, people don't want a device to go with the device, especially when they have to pay hundreds upon hundreds of dollars, maybe even thousands of dollars for it. They want a device that can be its own thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because that's what, when they released the Wii U, everyone actually thought it was something similar to what Sony's actually releasing with this. They thought it was a tablet thing that pairs with your Wii, but no, it was its own console, and it's not even on the go thing. Even people who knew it was its own console thought it was something more similar to a Wii, to the Switch.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. But at least with this, you can go out and about. But again, you can literally download the PlayStation app on your phone and stream to your phone, and it does the same thing.
Now, so you said this is something you can go out and about and do stuff separate from your PlayStation.
No.
I guess it's kind of similar. So it's kind of similar to the Xbox app.
Yes, it does that.
Okay, so you still have to have it, but you don't necessarily have to have it.
No,
you get what I'm saying?
Basically, you can play your PS5 on the go.
Yeah.
But still, you have to buy this on top of the PS5, and this is probably going to be a couple $100.
Yeah. Probably at least 5 or 6. because they price gouge everything.
You know, when a PS5 controller is like I think $70, you know, it's the same thing as that plus the screen and everything. So you know, they're yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it works out for them, but I don't know. I mean, like you said, when you can just use your phone, and they have things that you can basically turn your own device into that. Like
I said, if you already have a PS5, you already have a PS5 controller. You can get a clip for.
I'm even
you can get a
saying
clip
outside of that.
But what I'm saying is, you can get a clip for less than $20. That clips your
Mhm.
your phone to your controller. Download the PlayStation app, and you have the same thing right there.
And even if you wanted to go a little bit farther than that, you can buy the things that go around and where your phone's the screen is still in the middle. You can buy that for pretty cheap too.
Yeah.
And it would work exactly the same.
Yeah. This might be turning into a David rants more so than what's new with you, but
Hey, whatever works.
yeah. Maybe we should have done that. It is what it is. But yeah.
Too late to go back.
It's
I said too late to go back now.
yeah. But yeah, it is so dumb that they did that instead of an actual handheld console.
Yeah. It is funny though that we were just talking about that and then they released this.
Mm.
They were like, "We heard you. Here, this is just to spite you."
Yeah.
They definitely did not, but we're just gonna pretend like they did.
Yeah. Well, I got my Switch. I'm pretty happy with that. I wish it could run better games, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Switch is pretty cool. I think it's a good system.
I'm just waiting for them to put the original Battlefront 2 on there. They've got a bunch of other classic Star Wars games.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'll probably come with time.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, they got the other ones on there, so.
A lot of people are thinking that the Switch is nearing the end of its lifespan, so I don't know. Because it's been it's been 6 years, and that's generally about the time that Nintendo releases new consoles. So,
I mean, if they come out with something that's better, maybe, but I don't know. You think about it, it's kind of gotten to the point where the Switch is the big thing nowadays. Yeah, everyone plays Xbox and everyone plays PlayStation, but the Switch is still the big thing. It might have been 6 years, but I feel like it took a little while for it to get to the point where everyone had one and everyone was playing it, you know? So it might be, and if they come out with something else, then sure, but
well, that's the thing about the Nintendo, because the you know, all the exclusives on Nintendo. I guess Nintendo is one of those things that whether you're a PlayStation or an Xbox fanboy or whatever, you know, most people have one of those consoles and Nintendo.
Yeah. Well, see, Nintendo just needs to buy out everyone else, and then they can just capitalize the market.
That's not gonna happen.
Nah. I don't think Nintendo would care enough, and two, I don't know if they have the money to do that.
Also, if they wouldn't let Xbox buy Activision, they're not going to let Nintendo buy everything else.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if at some point someone has the money to do so, I mean, money is the biggest deciding factor. But I don't think Nintendo has that deep wallets to be able, or that deep pockets to be able to do that at this point in time, despite how big of a, a system they are, business they are. And two, I don't think Nintendo cares enough to do that.
Yeah. Nintendo just kind of seems content with just doing their own thing and ignoring everything else.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, you got any?
I've really
Nope,
noticed
go
that
ahead.
what's new with yous have really become just like us getting off topic for 20 to 30 minutes.
We made What's New with You just so we could get off topic. Our brains were so fried from having to stay on topic for such a long period of time that we were like, we
don't even stay on topic that well.
Well, I mean, we stay on topic a little bit better.
Well, okay, I will say we at least stuck with Star Wars this episode.
Yeah, I mean, we usually stick with Star Wars when we're talking about Star Wars. We usually stick with whatever topic. It's just we talk about like Marvel or Star Wars or something like that, and we usually can easily get off topic within that same universe. But David, you do realize that this podcast is essentially us talking, and our conversations have never been on topic.
No, never.
So, I mean, if people want to listen to us talk, then that's their own choices, and it's gonna be a little bit chaotic.
That's their own mistakes. Yep.
Yeah. So I just hope that they choose to keep making those mistakes.
Yep. Yeah, it's a mistake to listen to us, but please keep listening to us.
Yes, please. Well, David, you have anything else to add?
No, my brain's fried.
Good. My brain's been fried.
I can tell.
Yep.
Alright, well. If it's fine with you, let's move on to an outro.
It is fine with me. Let's do that.
Well, explorers, that's all the time we have for today.
We hoped you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below, or you can DM us on Instagram at DownTheRabbitTrailYT.
And be sure to join us next week on the Trailcast.